Chapter 31 of Bunyip Land. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Bunyip Land by George Manville Fenn. Chapter 31. How We Made Further Plans. "Why, Joe, my lad," he said at last, in a voice I did not recognize, it was so full of emotion, "you've driven me half wild. How could you get in such a fix?" "Jimmy get in big fix," said an ill-used voice. "Nobody glad to see Jimmy." "I'm glad to feel you," drawled a well-known voice. "I can't see you. How are you, Joe Carstairs? Where have you been?" "Jack, old fellow, I'm glad!" I cried, and I grasped his hands. "That will do," said the doctor sternly. "Are the savages after you, Joe?" "Yes, in full pursuit, I think." I said, "But my guide. I can't leave him." "Your guide? Where is he?" "I don't know. He was here just now. He brought us here." "Jimmy say goes back along," said the black. "He no top. Big fright. Gyp bite 'em." "One of the blacks, Joe?" said the doctor. "No, no," I said, so excited I could hardly speak coherently. "A white man, a prisoner among the blacks, like a savage, but—" "No, no," said Jimmy in a disgusted voice. "No like savage black fellow. Got a dustin' head. No tink a bit. All a gone." "His mind wanders, being a prisoner," I stammered. "He's with the blacks. A prisoner with my father." "What?" cried the doctor. "He has a fellow prisoner," I faltered. "I'm not sure. It must be my father." "Mass Joe find fodder all along," said the black. "Jimmy find too." "Be silent!" cried the doctor. "Do I understand aright, Joe, that your father is a prisoner with the people from whom you have escaped?" "Yes, I think so. I'm not sure. I feel it is so," I faltered. "H'm! Have you seen him?" "No," I said. "I did not know he was there until I was escaping." "Jimmy see all rightums. Find Mass Joe fodder." "You saw him, Jimmy?" I panted. Yes. Jimmy see him. Big long hair beard down tummuck." "You have seen him, the prisoner?" said the doctor. "Yes. Is Jimmy see 'em? Shut up all along. Sit down. Look at ground all asleep like a wallaby." "He means the poor fellow who helped us to escape," I said sadly. "Jimmy see Mass Joe fodder!" cried the black indignantly. "Jimmy take right along show 'em." "The man who brought us here?" No, cried Jimmy, dancing with vexation. Not. Jimmy see Mass Joe fodder sit all along. See froo hole. Big long beard down tummuck. Long hair down back. Shake head so. Say, hi ho hum. Nev see home again. Ah, my wife. Ah, my boy." "You heard him say that, Jimmy?" I cried, catching him by the arm. "Jimmy sure. Jimmy look froo hole. Then fro little tone and hit 'em. Then black fellow come along, and Jimmy lay fast sleep, eye shut, no move bit." "He has seen him, Joe," cried the doctor. "He could not have invented that." There was a low whining growl here again from Gyp, and Jack Penny drawled, "I say, shan't we all be made prisoners if we stop here?" "Quick!" said the doctor. "Follow me." "And our guide?" I cried. "We must come in search of him another time. If he has been with the blacks for long he will know how to protect himself." I was unwilling to leave one who had helped us in such a time of need, but to stay meant putting ourselves beyond being able to rescue my father, if it were really he who was our guide's fellow prisoner. The result, of course, was that I followed the doctor, while a snuffling whine now and then told us that Gyp was on in front, and in spite of the darkness leading the way so well that there seemed to be no difficulty. "Where are we going?" I said, after a pause, during which we had been listening to the cries of the savages, which appeared to come from several directions. "To our hiding place," said the doctor. "Jimmy found it before we lost him, and we have kept to it since, so as to be near you." "But how did you know you were near me?" I said. "Through Gyp first. He went away time after time, and I suspected that he had found you, so one day we followed him and he led us to the village." "Yes," I said. "Then we had to wait. I sent messages to you by him, and at last I got your answer. Tonight we were coming again to try and reach you, perhaps get you away. We meant to try. I should not have gone back without you, my lad," he said quietly. The cries now seemed distant, and we went slowly on through the darkness. Slowly, for the trees were very close, and it required great care to avoid rushing against them, but the doctor seemed to have made himself acquainted with the forest, and he did not hesitate till all at once the shouts of the blacks seemed to come from close by upon our right, and were answered directly from behind us. "A party of them have worked around," whispered the doctor. "Keep cool. They cannot know we are so near. Hist! Crouch down." We were only just in time, for hardly had we crouched down close to the ground than the sound of the savages pushing forward from tree to tree was heard. I could not understand it at first, that curious tapping noise, but as they came nearer I found that each man lightly tapped every tree he reached, partly to avoid it by the swinging of his waddy, partly as a guide to companions of his position. They came closer and closer till it seemed that they must either see or touch us, and I felt my heart beat in heavy dull throbs as I longed for the rifle that these people had taken from me when they made me prisoner. I heard a faint rustle to my right, and I knew it was Jimmy preparing for a spring. I heard a slight sound on my left just as the nearest savage uttered a wild cry, and I knew that this was the lock of a gun being cocked. Then all was silent once more. Perhaps the savages heard the faint click and uttered a warning, for the tapping of the trees suddenly ceased, and not the faintest sound could be heard. This terrible silence lasted quite 5 minutes. It seemed to me like an hour, and all the while we knew that at least a dozen armed savage warriors were within charging distance, and that discovery meant certain captivity if not death. I held my breath till I felt that when I dared breathe again I should utter a loud gasp and be discovered. I dared not move to bury my face in my hands or in the soft earth, and my sensations were becoming agonizing when there was a sharp tap on a tree, so near that I felt the ground quiver. The tap was repeated to right and left, accompanied by a curious cry that sounded like "Way! Why?" and the party swept on. "A narrow escape," said the doctor, as we breathed freely once more. "Go on, Gyp. Let's get to earth. We shall be safer there." I did not understand the doctor's words then, but followed in silence, with Jack Penny coming close up to me whenever he found the way open to tell me of his own affairs. "My back's a deal better," he whispered. "I've been able to rest it lately, waiting for you, and it makes it stronger, you know, and—" "Silence, Penny," said the doctor reprovingly, and Jack fell back a few feet. We travelled on till suddenly, instead of treading upon the soft decayed leaf soil of the forest, I found that we were rustling among bushes down a steep slope. Then we were amongst loose stones, and as the darkness was not quite so dense, I made out by sight as well as by the soft trickling sound that a little rivulet was close to our feet. This we soon afterwards crossed, and bidding me stoop, the doctor led the way beneath the dense bushes for some little distance before we seemed to climb a stony bank, and then in the intense darkness he took me by the shoulders and backed me a few steps. "There's quite a bed of branches there," he said aloud. "You can speak out. We're safe here." and pressing me down I sat upon the soft twigs that had been gathered together, and Jack Penny came and lay down beside me to talk for a time and then drop off to sleep, an example I must have followed, for all at once I started and found that it was broad daylight, with a loud twittering song of birds coming from the bushes at the entrance of what seemed to be a low-roofed extensive cave, whose mouth was in the shelving bank of a great bluff which overhung a silvery sounding musical stream. Some light came in from the opening, but the place was made bright by the warm glow that came from a kind of rift right at the far end of the cave, and through this was also wafted down the sweet forest scents. "Jimmy's was a lucky find for us," said the doctor, when I had partaken of the food I found they had stored there, and we had talked over our position and the probability of my belief being correct. "It is shelter as well as a stronghold," and he pointed to the means he had taken to strengthen the entrance by making our black followers bind together the branches of the tangled shrubs that grew about the mouth. In the talk that ensued it was decided that we would wait a couple of days, then go by night and thoroughly examine the village. Jimmy would be able to point out the hut where my father was confined, and then, if opportunity served, we would bring him away, lie hidden here for a few days till the heat of the pursuit was over, then escape back to the coast. I would not own to the doctor that I had my doubts, and he owned afterwards to me that his feeling was the same. So we both acted as if we had for certain discovered him of whom we came in search, and waited our time for the first venture. It was dangerous work hunting for food at so short a distance from the village, but our black followers, aided by Jimmy, were very successful, their black skins protecting them from exciting surprise if they were seen from a distance, and they brought in a good supply of fish every day, simply by damming up some suitable pool in the little stream in whose bank our refuge was situated. This stream swarmed with fish, and it was deep down in a gully between and arched over by trees. The bows and arrows and Jimmy's spear obtained for us a few birds, and in addition they could always get for us a fair supply of fruit, though not quite such as we should have chosen had it been left to us. Roots too they brought, so that with the stores we had there was not much prospect of our starving. In fact, so satisfactory was our position in the pleasant temperate cave that Jack Penny was in no hurry to move. "We're just as well here as anywhere else," he said. "That is, if we had found your father." "And got him safe here," he added, after a pause. "And the black chaps didn't come after us," he said, after a little more thought. "And your mother wasn't anxious about us," he said, after a little more consideration. "You'll find such a lot more reasons for not stopping, Jack Penny," I said, after hearing him out, "that you'll finish by saying we had better get our work done and return to a civilized country as soon as we can." "Oh, I don't know," said Jack slowly. "I don't care about civilized countries. They don't suit me. Everybody laughs at me because I'm a bit different, and father gives it to me precious hard sometimes. Give me Gyp and my gun, and I should be happy enough here." "Don't talk like that, Jack," I said in agony, as I thought of him who had helped me to escape, and of the prisoner he had mentioned, and whom the black professed to have seen. "Let's get our task done and escape as soon as we can. A savage life is not for such as we." That day we had an alarm. Our men had been out and returned soon after sunrise, that being our custom for safety's sake. Then too we were very careful about having a fire, though we had no difficulty with it, for it burned freely, and the smoke rose up through the great crack in the rock above our heads, and disappeared quietly amongst the trees. But we had one or two scares. hearing voices of the blacks calling to each other, but they were slight compared to the alarm to which I alluded above. The men, I say, were back, having been more successful than usual, bringing us both fish and a small wild pig. We had made a good meal, and the doctor and I were lying on the armfuls of leafy boughs that formed our couch, talking for the 20th time about our plans for the night, when all at once, just as I was saying that with a little brave effort we could pass right through the sleepy village and bring away the prisoner, I laid my hand sharply on the doctor's arm. He raised his head at the same moment, for we had both heard the unmistakable noise given by a piece of dead twig when pressed upon by a heavy foot. We listened with beating hearts, trying to localize the very spot whence the sound came, and when we were beginning to breathe more freely it came again, but faint and distant. "Whoever it was has not found out that we are here," I whispered. The doctor nodded, and just then Jack Penny, who had been resting his back, sat up and yawned loudly, ending by giving Jimmy, who was fast asleep, a sounding slap on the back. I felt the cold perspiration ooze out of me as I glanced at the doctor. Then turning over on my hands and knees I crept up to where Jimmy was threatening Jack with his waddy in much anger and held up my hand. The effect was magical. They were silent on the instant, but we passed the rest of that day in agony. "I'm glad that we decided to go tonight," the doctor said. "Whoever it was that passed must have heard us, and we shall have the savages here tomorrow to see what it meant." The night seemed as if it would never come, but at last the sun went down, and in a very short time it was dark. Our plans were to go as near as we dared to the village as soon as darkness set in, place our men, and then watch till the savages seemed to be asleep, and then, by Jimmy's help, seek out my father's prison, bring him away to the cave, and there rest for a day or two, perhaps for several, as I have said. But the events of the day had made us doubtful of the safety of our refuge, and after talking the matter over with the doctor, we both came to the conclusion that we would leave the latter part of our plan to take care of itself. "First catch your hare, Joe," said the doctor finally, "and look here, my lad, I begin to feel confident now that this prisoner is your father. We must get him away. It is not a case of try. We must, I say, and if anything happens to me—" "Happens to you!" I said, aghast. "Well, I may be captured in his place," he said, smiling. "If I am, don't wait, don't spare a moment, but get off with your prize. I don't suppose they will do more than imprison me. I am a doctor, and perhaps I can find some favour with them." "Don't talk like that, doctor," I said, grasping his hand. "We must hold together." "We must release your father," he said sternly. "There, that will do." End of chapter 31. How we made further plans.